Hey, I'm Kyle and I'm doing the brake service on a Model Y Performance. I've got a great pointer that'll save you some time. Stay tuned, you're going to want to hear it. You can save yourself a couple $100 by doing this service yourself. Doesn't take much time or tools. You just gotta have a jack, be able to take the tires off, socket, and some cleaning tools. This particular car is a little over 2 years old. And it's never had the brakes lubricated. You may ask, why do brakes need to be lubricated? Electric vehicles like Teslas have regenerative braking that do most of the stopping. You really don't actually use the mechanical brakes very much. So it is recommended that vehicles in northern climates that see road salt have a regular maintenance where you actually lubricate, you clean and lubricate the brake pads so that they're nice and free and can work when needed. Sometimes you might get a little bit of a brake squeal when the car is stopping or say backing into a charging spot. That's what I heard a couple weeks ago. So I am going to go through the service. I found a little bit online, but I found a fun little hack that made my life easier, so I wanted to share it. Let's go over some basic tools to start with. You need an E18 socket for these bolts. That's kind of a female Torx head, if you would. So somewhat specialized. You may not have that in everyone's toolbox. But there's two bolts on the back of the caliper that we're going to have to remove in order to pull this caliper off. And then we need to pull the brake pads out and service them. So to service them, you just need a little wire brush and you need some brake cleaner. There's maybe a little bit of corrosion on where the caliper and the brake pad kind of meet. We're going to clean those up and then we are going to lubricate them. Apparently this stuff is what's recommended by Tesla. So we're going to put a little bit of this on and put them back together. The last thing that you're going to need is a little box, something like this. This is over a foot tall, I'd say maybe 14, 15 inches. And it's going to go right here so that when I pop the caliper off, I can set it on something that's not going to scratch it. So with no further ado, I'm also going to show you a little hack that makes your life easier. I discovered from looking at this thing, it appears that it's designed for, there may be a tool. I wasn't able to find anything searching online, but I raided my shop and I found that a 1/2-inch rod was the perfect size to pull the tension off of these. So let me show you how this works. What you do is with a plastic pry bar, and all these are plastic so that we don't scratch these pretty red calipers. So with a pry bar, I'm going to go right in the top and I'm going to grab the top two springs, pry them out just a little bit and slide in that 1/2-inch dowel. And what that does is that takes the tension right off of these springs so that when I pull the caliper off, I'll just be able to pop out those pads, clean it up, put it back together, and slap it back on. So on the bottom side, we're going to do the very same thing. So pry this out a little bit and slide those pins right in just like that. So hopefully with a close-up here, you can see that the two pins are right in place. Now I am going to loosen up these two back bolts. I'm going to start by just loosening the top one. That way I'm not pulling that all the way out quite yet. And then I'm going to take out the bottom one entirely. So here we go. So these are larger bolts indeed. So you might need a little bit of brute strength to crack them loose. But they come out real nice, and because they are a Torx head, hopefully that shows up in the camera. It's a Torx head and a Torx driver bit. These things hold an awful lot of torque. You won't strip these, which is great. So all right, the bottom one is out, and then you can see we're already a little loose. So let me get the top one ready to come out. Now that it's close to coming out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that box I was talking about, put it right here, so that when I slide this off, I'm just going to use that to hold the brake caliper. All right, so now second bolt is out, and then the brake caliper is a little tight, but it slides right off just like that. And look at that, no tension at all. The brake calipers just slide right out. So what you're going to do is put these down here. These edges here are what matter. So you're going to clean these up real good with the wire brush, and then clean the respective portions on the brake caliper with the wire brush. Then spray it down with a liberal bit of brake clean, and then wipe it all off with a paper towel. Once everything's all clean, we lubricate these surfaces. I did already do this one, so you may notice it's just a little bit shiny. You don't want to get it on the brake pad material, but you just want to get it on the steel right there. And then to put them back in, remember the pad material goes towards the center. This thing goes towards the discs. With those pins in there, the calipers literally slide in and slide out, and there is no pressure whatsoever. So hopefully that shows from this angle. Now that those calipers are here, so see, I can slide it out, and I can slide them back in just like that. Yeah, that might make it easier. I wonder if I pull the pins right here, just like that. Now my pads are held very firmly in place, right? And then I can just slide right back on and start my bolts back again. So I like to start with the top one. And you support the weight of the caliper a little bit so that the bolt can kind of freely go in. Now that that's in place, line up the bottom one. And I'm just tightening these finger tight right now. I'll come back and torque them to final spec. All right. Just again using the socket and my fingers to tighten these things. But look at that, that worked out real well. So I did like putting the pins in first before I pulled it off. The calipers slide out real nice and easy. And since they're plastic, being able to pull them out and retain those pads seemed to work pretty well. So if you are fighting with your brake calipers, I recommend you find yourself a 1/2-inch rod. I used plastic, but I think wood would probably be quite suitable. Maybe a hardwood. Anyways, you want to use something soft that's not going to scratch the paint on the calipers. But now that they're all cleaned up, we're going to wipe them down and get the wheels back on. Okay, so I am getting ready to do the rear here. Let's get a close-up of what we're looking at. This is the rear rotor and caliper. We're going to pull off the caliper, but before we start pulling off these bolts, this is an electronic parking brake. So the rear wheels have a parking brake on them, and in order to release that, you'll notice these don't move at all right now. In order to release that, we're going to go inside the car and enter service and put this in tow mode. That'll allow the car to basically be in neutral where you could push it. So of course, since we're going to be putting it in neutral and removing the parking brake, we're also going to be chocking the tires. So be sure to do that if you are doing this service yourself. And then once it's there, it is similar to the front. There are 2 E18 bolts that we remove, and then the caliper can just slide right off. I do recommend having a cardboard box about 12 inches tall so that you can set the caliper onto it rather than just kind of leave it dangle. And then these pads actually just kind of pop out in order to be cleaned up and serviced. Again, these red calipers do clean up really nice. The glossy paint on them, you know, just a touch of brake cleaner and a wire brush goes a real long way. Get those wire brush into all those little nooks and crannies. I'd recommend focusing on the inside pad on this. There's some tracks that one runs in. You just want to make sure that those are nice and clear before lubricating, putting it all back together. Once it's all back together, again, you're going to take it out of tow mode, and that'll basically leave your car back in park, and you'll be good to go. You do not have to disconnect any electrical connectors, so don't worry about that. Nothing fancy, you don't have to worry about breaking it. Just set the caliper off to the side, and you can do all that service without disconnecting anything else at all. Literally just 2 bolts, pop it off, clean it up, lube it, and you'll be good to go. Okay, now the last thing I have to do is the same thing to the other side of the car. And then I'm also going to take advantage of the situation and rotate the tires. Now, the Performance does have a staggered tire setup with wider rear tires than the front. So all I'm going to be doing is moving the tires from the driver's side to the passenger side and vice versa. Not a crisscross pattern like you would with a normal square setup. So with that, I have completed my annual brake service for this. Everything's lubricated and moving all nice and freely. So if you do hear some brake noise as you're parking the car or at very low speed, you may want to consider this. And if you're due for maintenance or live in the north, you may want to think about it. It's not that hard, and with this little hack, I'm sure this will make your life a lot easier. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe. As always, it's much appreciated. Thank you.